Welcome everyone to a lovely end of the school day. Everybody within this group is somehow involved with the academic and social emotional growth of children. So whether you're a parent or a teacher or a principal or a counselor, I'm welcome you all, and I'm glad you gave your time to attend. I'm Lang Hudapol. Gabby Hudson is right there, and we both are the co-directors of EEO. Most of you know about EEO, but just briefly, we started in 2000, so this is our 22nd year, and we've been providing special ed literacy services to Eleuthera and Harbor Island in the public school system. It's evolved over the year to include the word literacy because the majority of our students are in the mainstream school. We work within the Ministry of Ed schools, and we provide hearing and vision screenings, an academic screening, and try to get the children the appropriate therapist evaluations and services that they need. So it's a group effort, a community effort. Quite often it's word of mouth. Someone knows someone whose child needs to be seen by a speech therapist or a neurologist, and we do our best to work together because, as you know, in the Family Islands, it's tricky to make things happen, or it's really easy to make things happen. So one of the most valuable things about this challenging time has been the ability to connect, even though we're separated. So an evening like this, where we're able to connect and hear from a talented guest speaker, is a wonderful opportunity. So I'm very grateful that Lisa Frenette is here. She's a special ed consultant with 23 years of experience in her field. And she's, maybe some of you know, because she has visited Harbor Island All Age School and seen our classroom and worked with some of our students, and is planning on coming back, but we've had COVID holding her back. But I'm really excited to have you share and collaborate with us so that we can best help our students. Thanks for
Sure.
making it.
Thank you for having me, Ling and Gabby and everyone. Thanks for joining. I wanted to start out a little bit about, and I've met many of your kids. I guess I just went to, did I go to the Eleuthera? I went to 2 schools there, Gabby. Yeah. And they were all such wonderful kids, and they really melted my heart, and I couldn't wait to come back. And then they're in the lovely pandemic and the never ending travel restrictions. So I do hope to come back soon and be able to offer more hands-on help. So in lieu of that, just a little talk on, when Gabby approached me for academic and social effects of the pandemic, I thought they really are connected in so many ways, because one sort of grossly affects the other. But in terms of our timing and just the most important aspects I can think of tonight, I wanted to start out with the social emotional sort of piece and how it affects children. And what I wanted to hear from those of you who are here tonight joining us, parents, and I guess teachers too, right? Parents and teachers. If anyone wants to give me either by way of chat to where it's to everyone or just say it, I was interested in finding out how many teachers and parents are here from elementary grades, kindergarten through 5th grade, let's say, or 4th grade. And then how many from the, middle school and the older, yeah.
Primary.
Primary only, right? There's no middle school. Oh, you're saying primary. Okay, I just wanted to get a count. I'm sorry.
I actually have both primary and through high school. So
okay, great. Primary and high school.
And I teach primary level, but I have a daughter who's in the high school.
Okay. And primary Lang for you. Okay. Anyone else?
Miss Nixon, what is she? Do you know? And then I know Jenny is primary as well.
And he's primary,
So,
right.
and Agnes is upper school, and Regina's primary. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm just going through.
Great. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I know multitasking, the writing, the reading.
It's a good combination of primary and upper and parents.
Super. Yeah. So I wanted to just sort of detail. I mean, I have some notes and paperwork I'll give you also, as well as resources that I'm gonna I've sectioned off from parent to teachers and what that looks like. But I wanted to get an idea and just have an open conversation and not be distracted by the paperwork that's the one thing I can't control in New York is traffic and my dog. So I apologize. Yeah. Anyway, and it looks markedly different, the social emotional piece and how kids have struggled over the years, regardless globally, from the United States to the Bahamas and everywhere. But it is markedly different from the elementary grades, I believe, to the middle school and high school students. And I wanted to just break down the elementary students in terms of if anyone wanted to share and some feedback, what you're reporting. And, the common things that we're seeing here in the States and in New York is clearly the social isolation, whether students have siblings or not. They're not the typical scenarios of play dates and get-togethers that they would have imagined, and certainly feeling disconnected from groups in general with the pandemic, and being home has played a big part on students and their, I would say, their self-esteem and how they go through, how they reconnect with students and what that means for their self-esteem and how they feel and how they know where they fit in with other students, whether they have siblings or not. So if anyone could give me some examples of what you're seeing in the elementary grades, teachers, maybe for some of your students, if you give me some of those examples, and then I could give you like broad strokes of like what is happening in data and the world and globally by age. But I'd like to hear from you. So this way we can make it more of a hands-on worksheet, and I can workshop and I can help you and give you some anecdotal information and some hands-on help. And you guys are back in person, correct? You just got back in person?
Hybrid, yep, they're back.
Oh, a hybrid, okay. And what's the amount of kids that are in person at school? Is it half of the class of each class, or?
It's
usually
Ms. Farquharson would be able to answer that mostly because she actually is one of the primary administrator, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Farquharson. But half of the student body is on campus at any given time. So when we have certain grades on one day, then we'll have the other grades on a different day. And then with both primary and the upper classes. Yeah, Ms. Farquharson would probably know more about how that is all working, but generally half of the student body is on one day, and then the rest of them are on virtually or remotely. And then the other half kind of flip-flops per grade, per student, based on, their groups. The groups are coming individually.
So, yeah, thank you. So I think just from a
Ms.
perspective.
Crystal, you are correct about that. Sorry. Ms.
That's okay.
Farquharson here. Yes, you are correct about that. I'm in the primary department. We basically have them streamed, so it's almost half and half that come each day.
Okay.
In the high school, there are selective groups that would come in, but it's the entire class that come in the high school.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely socially, the children are happy to have the socialization back. And we have to be so careful about it because social distancing, they totally forget because they're so excited to see their friends who they haven't seen for a long time and chit chat. So yes, we have to be mindful of the social distancing with children just adhere. But we try, I hope our very best with that. But yeah, we have about half of the primary school back.
Okay, that's great news. Yeah. And I think the other thing is it's important to remember, and just from a logistical and sort of technical standpoint, without all of those barriers, the kids that are signing in remotely, and I know that's true for everywhere, unless you really have some top level equipment, you're not seeing the teacher if she moves around the room, or a student, it's very one-dimensional, right? So that student that's logging in without even seeing your equipment, because I know that's a struggle here in the States, the child that's remote that day, or the children, they're hearing it and seeing maybe you or the classroom, but it's not a toggle that follows them, auditorily by their voice, which very few places even have in the States. So unless I'm wrong, that's incredibly disconnecting for a student, just in terms of the gaining the content. And really, there are a lot of things that happen with affect for teachers, right? And students and side talk, and they may miss that, whether it's from the hearing perspective or the visual perspective. I feel like there's a huge loss for students remotely, but that's the way it is anyway. I mean, it's the way it is here too. to the best of schools, they don't have all of that equipment to make that happen. Would you say that's true for the children who are remote when a lesson is
I
going
mean,
on live?
when our children are remote, basically what we do is post work online. They don't actually turn in virtually, but we just
Okay.
post assignments online for them on the remote days, but they don't actually see in class.
Got
They're
it.
not
Okay.
online in class.
Okay. And how does that work in terms of their production for the work and turning it in when it's like I don't see it, I don't hear it, I may not do it, you know?
Yeah, definitely the percentage of turn in work is a lot less
Mhm.
when they're assigned online. Sorry, I'm home and my kid is talking. So I'm a bit distracted, sorry. Yes, but no, the amount of children that turn in work during virtual is really low.
Yeah, and is the virtual selected like you just half the grade so that there's more distance and less kids in the school on any given week? That's the way you do it. It's not, okay. It's not who selects it, whether they want to stay home or, okay. All right. So everyone is dealing with the same thing. So thank you for that information. That helps me. So I wanted to break this down by teachers and, parents and students. And I think teachers at the main hub, and, you do all such amazing work. And I know it's been quite a struggle for everyone, and in particular, taking a toll on teachers because you want to feel effective, and you have, you're bound by what you can do within your environment and your technology and resources and all that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the social emotional piece for younger kids and what they're experiencing, the elementary, primary grades, and what we're seeing and what the data is really gearing up to is really what the older kids are too, but on a much more less at risk situation. So kids are feeling no self-esteem. Kids are not feeling a big connection with each other. They're not even knowing how to regain and re-enter those groups when they are live in person. How do they reconnect and what do they say? Do they have even the language skills, or how do they tap into, a subject or a topic to know what's, important or wouldn't be inappropriate. And I feel like on a speech and language, a cognitive and academic, and a lack of self-esteem is really affecting younger kids in the primary grades. Would you say that's true for most of the primary grade students? The teachers, would you guys feel that that's mostly the case?
Yeah.
Like how they're addressing with each other in a playground and exactly what you said, they can't go near each other.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's asking kids to play unnaturally in a way. There's a lot more OT needs. There's a lot more kids who are exhibiting that kind of thing.
Okay, OT needs too. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to
What
know.
I've seen, actually, I'm sorry, I was trying to make a point and forgot I was muted. I'm sorry. What I have seen is most of, because the kids are really so excited to socialize again, there has been a lot of peer tutoring happening because it's somehow they know that they've missed out on so much. And so it's like a team effort to, kind of get caught up with the things that they have missed, for whatever reason. Even virtually, it was so hard for kids to just, for whatever reason, get online to be with their regular teachers. But when they were back on the campus, it was like they showed up and it was like, okay, we ready to work, so yeah,
Right.
that has been the main dynamic that I've noticed lately.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for sharing that, Ms. Crystal. And I think it goes back to really looking at sort of the etiology of like what's going on with each kid pre-pandemic, right? So, and then making it 100 times harder with the pandemic. So a lot of kids struggle with attention deficit, known or unknown, even for a typically developing kid, attending online, and even knowing to log on, like you said, and having that motivation to complete their work when they, don't have that accountability in person, and they don't have that motivation when they're not in person. So that's a struggle. And then I think just the social piece and remembering those nuances and those conversations and what's the thing that they had in common to, other than school or Miss Crystal or Miss Deal or anyone to maintain that like conversation and know what to do. So I think there's a lot of backup work to do. And I think in terms of what I'm reading and what I'm seeing and what we're training in all the schools here in New York is really about minimizing pressure and meeting kids where they're at, and wherever they're at, kind of celebrating in it and just taking small baby steps to encourage participation and feeling really good about that. And when kids feel that there's a trust and they can enter back in person, I think there's then the further looking and evaluating that has to go on, where, EEO has done a remarkable job. Thanks to Lang and Gabby really pulling every single resource known to man, from hearing tests to screenings to evaluations to, any sort of resource to do workshops or training. And I think that pool has to be expanded again. And the good news, if we can find any in the pandemic, has really been the opportunity for a lot of empathy across the education field and globally, where there are tremendous resources that I put together, some of them for you tonight, in tapping into people that are everything from graduate students at top universities in the United States to medical fields and mental health professionals that are willing to donate time. It is telehealth and done virtually, but that's okay, because the virtual piece has actually made people come together and tap into resources that we otherwise never would have if pandemic and Zoom didn't take on the kind of life that it has. So I think those are really, really important resources. And first and foremost is what to do with students that are at risk. And I talk about this more in a middle school to high school. The pandemic has recreated and rebirthed, so to speak, an unprecedented amount of depression in students, withdrawal, isolation, self-harm for some, suicidal ideation, even if they would never carry it out or mean it. That's the kind of stuff that the states and middle school and high school students, teachers and families and students are dealing with.
Sorry, I'm on this.
So I think number one is to really break down the resources, and for students, it's having, and for families at once, it's some really tight surveys that go out to families, asking some really hard questions based on their age, and being upfront and honest, and they can be anonymous if they want. And I'm happy to provide those surveys to you. And then once you gather that information, there's a survey also that goes out to teachers, because you do God's work, so to speak. So between teachers and healthcare workers, no one would have survived the pandemic if it weren't for you. And I can see just in, with the teachers, EEO works with how incredibly talented and dedicated the staff is. So that's terrific. And having them to also fill out an anonymous, if they wish, a survey that really pools where the crisis really is first and foremost as a primary concern and worry. Does that start with ninth graders and you have 5 per se, or what the case may be? And then moving from there to start with at-risk students, to students that are, moving to the at-risk but aren't there yet. And then there are some, you wanted to say something like, and then moving to back up to resources. So the younger students do not get to the same point that high school students might be struggling with at this time. So, when I have those resources for you, and I'll put those out to you. So surveys are really important in gathering further information as a first step in this workshop and talk. And again, I'll provide those surveys to you. And then it starts with a survey to teachers, as I said, and then resources just as a number one go-to. And I'll share this. Hopefully I can get it. I'm going to share it on screen. One of the resources, let's see if I can do this. My Google, because you're really interested in my Google screen. Let's see if I can get to this. Here it is. Oh, it's going to make me sign in.
It's okay. We've all been there. There's
Yeah,
the MVP.
and, it should be in here. Now it's just gonna make me sign in. I don't know why it reads my other. I will send it to you afterwards. So we don't
Yeah.
actually even have a distraction. I don't know what happened here. You're like on a weird,
We have everybody's email, and I would love to share resources with everybody. As I mentioned, the way that EEO has survived even before the pandemic throughout the Family Islands is
Mhm.
through a community effort. So, there's some teachers on here that are the reason that EEO survives because they're working with us to help the students. So all the teachers that are attending tonight are dedicated, all the administrators too are dedicated to helping students in whatever way possible. So this is the beginning of a good group
Yeah.
for community building.
Terrific. And so I broke it down by, as I said, for students, for teachers, and for parents. So, the first step for parents obviously is being informed, and understanding that the crisis that's going on, and it's not just their student, it's not anything a parent did or didn't do. It's really just the nature of what's happening right now, and the aftermath, I'd like to call it. And then, being informed and knowing what's going on at school and knowing what resources you have available to you and knowing when to, most importantly, communicate with teachers or a healthcare professional in those moments of concern right away. And having the resources at your fingertips is really important. So when there is, we hope there isn't, but if there is a crisis that's really life-threatening or really self-harm in nature, there's hotlines, and there's 24/7 hotlines that I recommend to families that are incredibly helpful to have just for that safekeeping, and hopefully you'll never need it. And that older students will have at their disposal as well. And I will provide those. So, communication and being informed and communicating with teachers and resources at your fingertips, very important for parents. Resources for teachers are, vast and very important. And, just for your own personal well-being, teachers are super overtaxed and doing amazing work. And there's, SEL training, the social emotional learning training. Again, resources are voluminous and they're good. And I have them fine-tuned for you in small sound bites of immediate resources, both online, in speaking and workshops, and in resources that can be shared to a student level too. So, and of course, wellness and prep days. I don't know if the ministry allows for that, particularly in the pandemic. I know that there's a shortage of teachers all over the United States. But I mean, if you paid them, a professional MBA salary, you still couldn't get a teacher because there are none available. A lot of people have left. A lot of people have left teaching. A lot of people have left their cities and their schools where they worked for 20 years. So that's all still happening here. So I can't imagine the stretch in, a Caribbean island and the Bahamas and specifically. So having said that, they need some prep time, and that's something else we can talk about. And prep time and really pooling with each other, and having, what we do is WhatsApp group chat lines, so that there's constant communication. And when there's something urgent to share, everyone pitches in, or someone has a free period or a free day or a free moment, and we'll be the only one on the chat that time to send an alert out when there's a real problem. So it's really having each other's back. And that's one internal support that's really important. And the other one is, as part of your community, it sounds like a terrific community from what I know and what Lang and Gabby have shared. And then there's the support works outside for teachers that are super important, that they can get free training, tap into an hour, once a week or half an hour, and develop really good resources for themselves, for their own personal learning, and of course for the community. There are local and nearby psychology graduate students that will do this for free. And I know a bunch of them. And there are programs like the Trevor Project, who do 24/7 hotlines for students struggling with their own self-identity, and then coupled with the pandemic, their prevention services for crisis. And then open counseling hotlines. There's tons of them. And I provided all this for you, but I can't share it for you. In the Bahamas, and then I'll open up for some questions, there's something called, I looked it up, called findahelpline.com. And it's organizations that, National Hotline for Crisis Intervention. Those are for kids who are really at risk. And the Ministry of Education in the Bahamas actually has a very good website as well, where you can tap into some resources. I don't know how that plays out and what it looks like, because I haven't tried that myself, but I did happen to look it up to see what was available locally. I wanted to know if anyone had reached that point, needed that, felt comfortable with that. Of course, they're all anonymous, and you can certainly change your phone to a unpublished number just by a press of a button on a smartphone. And I wanted to know who has tapped into that, would be apprehensive to do that, or would like to know that and feels that they have, you know, a student or several students in crisis.
I think a lot of people will take advantage of the resources that you share, but also just for the exact moment now when we are dealing with a student that is showing signs of despair, a parent, or just even addressing, yeah, like for the moment, I want to know, like, what kind of response is the most helpful.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Sure, sure. And for those students, are they reaching out to you, or you just know of it collectively and have met and observed some behaviors that are concerning?
So for
I-
me,
Mhm.
like, I'm about to start working with a new student. And based upon what the parent is saying to me, it's a young primary school student. However, the child feels a failure. Now, there's some things going on in the child's home life,
Mhm.
but academically, the teacher is not meeting the child where the child is not doing the celebration of the little things. And so the child is being made to feel more of a failure. So I know there are things that I can do, but I'm interested, you know, in some insights of what I can really tap into. Because when I've worked with this child before, and when the child left me, great success. And so I'm really heartbroken now that it's being torn down. It's already a pandemic, and he's not getting any support in the school, which he should have.
Right. So
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I mean, I'm sorry. I have one in particular of everything that, well, there's a few. Some are more resilient than others. I have one who he is happier now because he's in school. I think, and he, you know, had some issues over the summer where he was going through a depressive time. And I just kind of wanted to make him feel like this is where you can find trust to open up and talk about anything. And with no judgment, without me, you know, being critical of whatever it was that he was going through. Then I have another who I think her adversity just drives her more. I mean, she just shows up on days when she's not supposed to, and she's like, she comes by my house, and she really just is striving to be in a better place mentally, I think. And she, she's been through so much. One of the things is I like to, talk about with her is that she survived an earthquake last summer. And so she came back and she's like, this is what happened. She poured her heart out to me. And as soon as she did that, she got straight to work. She's like, okay, that's enough of that. What are we gonna do now? So I have those moments with those children who I know who are at risk, and they just, from one extreme to the other, one extreme is having to use all of the comforting resources that I know how. And then the other is just like, okay, I'm catching up with you, because I'm like, oh my God, that happened. And she's like, yeah, okay, let's go to work, So, so it's a vast, like a spectrum of
Sure.
personalities. Yeah.
Right.
it comes
And
to
also,
that.
right, and also like, where did they start before, right? You were saying Ms. Deal and the student that's new to you. We don't know what the challenges were ahead of time, and we certainly know what the environmental effects in terms of his last school have been on him, which is no self-esteem, feeling like a failure, not being set up for success, but probably dissected and, as you said, Miss Crystal, dissected and criticized, right, and judged instead of being empowered. And I think that starts, and I'm really happy to hear Miss Crystal, the second student that you talked about that survived the earthquake. I mean, she sort of like compartmentalized, here's what was going on. Thanks for the support. I feel trust and love and comfort. And from that confidence, vantage point, I'm ready to go. So that's really good that she has such self-awareness and is resilient like that. So, and sometimes kids as a defense mechanism say things like that, and they don't actually mean that they're ready to go, or they do, and they sort of peter out because their intention is to want to be ready to go. And then something, is a ghost of a reminder, like the scar left behind, and it rears its head. So I don't let those students to loose on a rope, even though they're very promising. And I think that's a really great sign. The more fragile kids, and any kid that's like that, like Miss Deal, like the boy that you'll be starting with, that's new, the most important hands-on number one strategy, again, is in terms of meeting them where they're at, is also getting to know them and showing them that you're caring or interested. So before we get into dynamics of emotional state and their home life and what's been horrible and, challenges academically and socially and whatever else they brought in from, as they started as a student, one of the most important things is really to make a kid feel empowered and that you trust them and that you believe in them. And the way to do that, and just from a behavioral standpoint, because I'm a 23-year behavior analyst as well. So, and I think behaviorally speaking, the way to tap into that is to truly mean that you're interested in learning about their strengths and their interests. I don't care if it's Pokemon or, some new music or whatever it is, and showing an interest when families are all strapped and exhausted and mentally worn and have a lot of other life crisis and things going on aside from their kids' progress or challenge. And I think tapping into that is a way to speak the language of a kid that shows there's an interest, a genuine care, and wanting to get to know them. And just as a side note and as a side effect, when that happens, particularly with young kids, they're more likely to share and participate and sustain that relationship and the work involved. So we were recently tutoring some children and helping at EEO, and the best way, like when I brought up something they were interested in, they were like, they could not get enough. I don't think they wanted to get off the phone. And it's not because it's disingenuous, because it really is genuinely, you want to get to know them and what drives them and what they care about. I don't care if it's music or Pokemon or a new pair of sneakers. Engaging with students on their level, on the things they really, really love and are important to them and feel comfortable to talk about, is the first step in having an open communication and being effective with any student, period. Whether that's an academic delay or a challenge or a social emotional issue. If students don't feel that there's a trust and a open communication and a genuine care and interest in them, then there's never going to be a great communication. There's going to be resistance and uncomfort and all of those kinds of things. So tapping into what they love and know, and they want to share with you. From that point and communicating and sharing that you're here too. And you know what I like? I like my, my show that I watch, my sitcom I watch every week. And I have a sweet tooth. So that's my guilty pleasure, and showing them you're with them. And, I struggle. I want to play tennis, but I can't because I'm not good at it. So, and showing people you're like real and with them. So that communication you all do so beautifully. And I know, but that the level of trust in the communication that's open is the first step. And keeping that communication, whether that takes a form over holiday break of a WhatsApp and like several codes for I'm concerned, or I just miss you, and can we schedule 10 minutes to shoot the breeze? Are you available? Someone's raising a hand. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to commend Ms. Crystal. She is awesome with communicating and developing the trust with the students. We had a situation which she did not mention just this weekend past where if the pandemic wasn't enough, then we had a student who lost a parent, and Ms. Crystal reached out to this student, and really tried to meet her emotional needs. Ms. Crystal, yes, I heard all about it. I also saw you giving her a hug, which really touched me. And yes, Miss Crystal is excellent, excellent, excellent with that. She really reaches out to the children and she shows that she's interested. She shows that she's genuine and she have their best interests at heart. So thank you so much, Miss Crystal. Although I
Oh,
don't always get to say it.
thank you. You're gonna make me cry. I'm also having a hot flash, so excuse my fan going here.
I have no doubt. I've seen your teachers in action. They're just, all of you are so terrific. So all the more reason why I'd love to stay involved with EEO and all of you over there. So I think that, clearly you do that very well, that communication, but having that sustained over holiday breaks and, it's a lot. I mean, I've been on the phone with students at 12 o'clock at night and on holidays, I've stepped away and said, I have, a couple of minutes. I'd love to connect just to show, it isn't, and I know you're not like that anyway, but that communication and then that trust builds and then they start sharing as they did with you, Miss Crystal and Miss Deal, you seem like you're having that situation going on with the boy who feels like a failure somewhere else. So tapping into not only what they like to get the communication going and sustain it, but then also to tap into what they're really strong at, because empowering any student and making them feel really good at what they are good at and recognize that. I don't care if it's writing music or math or reading or a special book they like, any of those kinds of things. I'm sorry, my dog. He is really important to make them feel like I'm not going to be here talking one-to-one with you and feel dissected, and that's often what happens with kids with special needs or kids who are just struggling socially and emotionally. They feel dissected. So like, oh, you're here to tell me what I can't do, or not in that way, but you're here to work on what I can't do. Well, I already don't feel good about it. So why don't we take those extra few minutes and work on the stuff that they're really great at and find ways to weave that in. I mean, I'll take kids and, my daughter and I tutored some kids from EEO a few weeks ago, and, we made stories that included SpongeBob because they were really into it. Well, I mean, the kids were off their seats wanting more and more. I don't care what the story's about. You're learning how to read and I'm motivating you at the same time. So that's a very simple example. And I think making stories, social stories where you use other people or do video role model and social role playing with video modeling to show them that they're not alone. There are similar situations with this particular student or this example where we can talk about it. How do you feel about that? And what does that look like? What's your perspective on that? And making sure they don't feel alone. And then of course the nonstop communication is what it's all about. So having a direct line to you, a mental health provider, telehealth, or a counselor, and their family. It has to be really set up for any of those students that are on the cusp of at risk or at risk. It has to be several layers of communication that are immediate and already set up on everyone's phone, because that makes the big difference in how they go forward in life. I, in fact, am privy to a 13-year-old girl who moved across the country to New York with her mom, single mom, and she attempted suicide by taking some of her prescribed medicine. And because she's a very open, communicative kid, she shared it with a couple of kids in school. And those parents, unbeknownst to, us was, oh my goodness, like, we didn't even know that would be the case, or they had access. It was over a holiday break. So it's very important to be preemptive in your strategies where you provide parents a protocol, direct communication, share immediately with your teachers, your health professionals, and your first order of communication is not, the peers in the class to scare them or whatever. And I respect from that student's perspective, wanting to reach out to someone she felt safe with, but there's a protocol and an order. Because then we're picking up the pieces as a school and educators trying to say, who did it get to and how is that affecting them? Well, I have my own worry about my own kid, that kind of thing. So protocols are very important for each school. And someone had a question, I think. I don't know.
No, it wasn't a question. I really agree with what you're saying about connecting to them, because we are also worried about the academic part, but if you can connect it to their interests and make them feel like you care about them, it's amazing how much,
You
how
get
that,
100% more, right?
especially that closed off kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may take, 1 or 2 meetings. It may take more. And when I used to go into people's homes and do behavioral analysis and evaluations, they would say, well, I mean, you spent like 2 hours here. And I'm like, yeah, because the kid didn't talk to anyone and, threw like chairs at windows. And now like, this is my buddy. So now I can start slowly going in with the kind of demands and the demands is the wrong word, the asks and the tasks and what needs to be done little by little. And then it doesn't feel so overwhelming for students. There's a reason why there's a saying in behavior terms, whether that's social, emotional, or academic, and it's called, there's a reason behaviors are sustained, right? And they maintain themselves. And they maintain themselves because I'll use a simple example. If you keep on speeding up when there's a yellow light and you don't get in trouble, you keep on doing it. But then, and if you continue to speed up and the yellow light almost turns red and you get a ticket with points on your license, you no longer speed up at the yellow light. So behaviors are maintained because a kid can, or a student or anyone can get away with it, even an adult, as I did with the yellow light. So behaviors maintained because they're fed from previous schools, as Ms. Deal said, and they're not feeling good and they haven't associated school as a safe place or teacher as anything but authoritarian, instead of a friend and a counselor and a go-to safe place and a safe person. And that's why protocols are so important, both in the home and the school and shared with each other. So there's a whole other workshop that should take place on protocols of communication between, parents and school, just in this crisis time. And we'll see how it pans out afterwards, but it's critical now. What else did we want? I want to do it. Does anyone have any questions on some of the stuff we talked about? And I just wanted to add one thing. I mean, clearly academics in everyone's mind as a parent or a teacher when a child is in crisis is secondary to mental health and crisis and the things that kids are going through as a side effect of the pandemic. One affects the other really though, because if they're so behind and they feel so much pressure, right? Lang, you would share that with me, to catch up on their academics. They're not having a good, strong self-esteem about themselves. And therefore they're less inclined, if at all, to socialize and reach out because they're not their confident self, right? Because they have these worries that they're weighing them down with, I can't do this. I forgot how to do it. So that's a whole nother workshop. Quite frankly, I thought I could combine them, but there's more pressing issues with social, emotional, forget about growth, just getting to a point of meeting them where they're at and making it healthy and making it safe.
No question.
Yeah.
So the student who's coming to me, I'm already brainstorming because I've worked with the child before.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the child's current teacher. Yes, you should connect with that child first. The academic should come second, particularly in this time. However, I know that the teacher that this child is with this year is not. She will look at the academics first and care less about what else is happening.
Right.
How can I alleviate some of the pressure for him, because he's going to be spending most of the time in the classroom with this particular teacher. I'm going to be running interference, trying to build up some things for him. And I know it's not going to be enough for what he's taking the pressure on in the classroom, as well as I know he has some other pressures outside, but particularly the classroom is, I think, going to be and is one of his major issues right now.
Yeah. So when is he coming to you?
We were supposed to start next week, but I think I'm going to tackle, I know there's something that this child loves to do, and I'm just going to take a day this week just to spend some time with them doing this particular thing so that he can get reacquainted with me. He's very familiar with me, but just to bond before we get started, I think I'm going to do that this week.
I think that's terrific. And that's what I would have said. And the other thing is, I think the transition from the school to you, it's important as you bond and just make something fun and sort of tap into what he's interested in to make him feel good and be able to communicate with you and enter school safely and happily. And as you do that, even by the second session or feeling it out and how he responds to you by your first meeting with him, I would show some pictures of something really fun in the classroom. And I, make sure you always resonate back that you are a teacher and this is your great school. And look at these fun kids. We took a video of them singing or on the playground, and look how great it is. Because what your job is more than a challenge, and just in terms of what he's dealing with and bringing over, but he also has a lack of a positive association with school in general, right? So if he didn't have a good experience with his current teacher, and he's probably, even if he's good at academics, I guarantee he's probably resistive to even doing academics because of the way it was taught and presented to him. So school's not a happy, motivating, great place for him. So that's a hard job for you, just one in connecting. And I think you'll probably welcome your connection because I can see how you are. But also just throwing in pictures or taking a quick video with permission of parents to a happy time when, like, look, this is our school. Look at the kids on the playground, no discussion of academics, and reestablishing the association that's predisposed in his mind of what school is. It's not a great situation for him. So always making sure that, you establish that, as you suggested. Number one, as you said, spending time, getting to know him, knowing what he likes, and bridging like what he likes and how that could happen in school. Nothing to do other than the word school and teacher with academics. Just, hey, look how fun this is for these kids. So thank you for asking that. And I bet you'll do a great job with him. Keep us posted on that. And you're always welcome, teachers, to, with permission of parents, for any situation in school, of course, passed by Lang and Gabby. I'm always happy to review a videotape or a small snapshot that you can take on your phone of a situation that concerns you. You might need immediate attention, whether that's resistance or excitement for a particular subject, and then a breakdown and a fall off, and you don't know where it came from or what precipitated it. The same for social, emotional, or behavioral. Please feel free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to hear from you all if there's specific situations that you're looking for some clarity on, like even if it's as simple as wording, like Ms. Deal just mentioned, like how do you build up self-esteem when someone else is tearing it down? How do you balance that out? I oftentimes speak to students as if they a little bit beyond their maturity level, because I feel like letting them be self-aware is such a tool. So I could see, I verbalize their emotions for them. Oh, I could see you're frustrated. I can see you're biting your nails. I do that when I'm nervous.
Exactly.
And then sort of just opening up the book of what emotions you're feeling. Let's talk. Like, I don't know how to explain, but because you're the behavioralist, but what are the ways that we can get kids to open up and build their self-esteem so that their learning is able to happen?
Yeah, I think taking sometimes the pressure off them in the spotlight for a lot of kids is really important. I do a lot of video social role modeling and examples, like searching the internet high and low, for just little examples of, I don't know, there's a fight on the playground. I'm using something just easy and simple. And the one kid feels left out because he looks like the instigator, even though he's not. He doesn't want to communicate because there's 4 and he's 1. Using something simple. It may not even be a case here. And it's taking that away from them and saying, hey, I came across this video. Why don't we take a vote? So there's no pressure on anyone. who thinks that, student A is and what do we do? Who has another perspective? I want to hear something different. What do you think is happening? So taking it away from the actual student, and making it a group. I mean, we actually do tons of SEL work within the classroom and the schools all over the states, more so in New York and LA and, Florida. There's a lot of that going on where it's taken away. And then the kids all of a sudden are like, oh, I had that and I saw so-and-so. And what did you do? What was your way you could, be supportive to a friend? Oh yeah, it happened to my friend. And this is what I did. Well, great. I love the participation. And then all of a sudden they're thinking, all right, I wasn't on the spotlight. I wasn't embarrassed, but I'm going to remember that, because what's more powerful than videos and pictures, right? Not words, not a teacher talking, even though you're all fabulous, is a video, and kids love those videos. So it's really, even for the older kid, I mean, taking a perspective of other kids, even if it's something that doesn't affect you, super, super powerful learning moments. They're fun. They like to tap into them, and you'll get their attention 100%. Some will participate one time and others won't, but they'll take that information, and they'll use it as a strategy and a tool when they can. And it's finding the right situation too. Yeah.
What's a good spot to look for videos of social dilemmas? Do you have a
Oh,
particular favorite?
yeah.
Anybody else have
I
one?
go to about like 5 or 6 of them. I can share them with you. I don't remember the names offhand.
That's all right, but maybe
Um,
when you send, what, because we're going to be sending everybody who's attended information out, maybe include those in as
I
well.
will. I will.
I think that's really good. I always use literature as an as a way to work through problems.
Mhm.
And that the kids are like, oh, she's talking about me, but it's true. Discussing things from a social point of view, and then academics can be kind of integrated into all that reading and comprehension.
We have a question in the chat. It says, how can a teacher build trust with high school students?
Again, that's a very hard job, but if you're tapped into understanding your students and what they love, what drives them, what motivates them, a way to include that and make them feel powerful. How does it build trust? So, you can, again, establish and associate school as a great place and a place that motivates them. I like to do something where I train a lot of schools to do a talent development kind of thing. And this is like a project-based learning that can go on for a little while or a whole year or half a year. And it's where the student gets to walk into school every week and they know that one part of that week is going to be them, because they want to make a YouTube video on cars, race cars, just making up something. And as Lang said, there's a lot of academics that go into that, right? Well, if you wanted to have the subject of something you love, show me how you write with that, what you would write and what your bullet points are and your topics, teaching them how to be organized from an executive function standpoint. And then also having them build the trust, because they know that it's not just whatever their preconceived notion was of school or whether it was a positive experience or not, tapping into what they care about. If it's a teenage girls and they love their clothes and the boys love their sneakers or sports, taking topics of interest and flushing it out, saying, oh, I've recaptured my audience and my student that didn't trust because it's interesting to them. Just like it was for the young kids who, we've made a whole story around SpongeBob because they were interested. Things can go from there where, we eventually generalize and say, not every day is going to be a party about, the hottest sneakers to get from Nike, or the nicest clothes to wear. But if you start from that vantage point and you're consistent with it, you will get trust and you will get a kid who is communicative and motivated. It's probably the most important thing you can do for any kid, young or primary school or high school.
Ms. Farguson has a question.
Yes, me again. Question here, going back to Miss Steele's situation with the student that she's trying to build up and trying to get confident and all this. Would you recommend Miss Steele to have a conversation with the teacher, with the classroom teacher?
Yeah, I absolutely would. And my guess is the teacher that teaches that way isn't really invested in the student after they walk out the door or while they're on their way out. That's my guess, but I might be wrong. I would connect with them just for some valuable, a couple of minutes of anything that is alarming to them, or any points in terms of the student's personality, that could be helpful. And because you know the type of teacher that is, that obviously, Ms. Deal, you are not that teacher. You will not practice any of those things, but you will, if there's one or two helpful things in there that helps for a transition for the student to you, then that would be helpful.
So I'm a little careful with that, seeing that I am a teacher and I was with the Ministry of Education. There are some who can be intimidated by me. So I'm a little careful with that. But the mother has shared some emails, and the response that the teacher gave, I am embarrassed as an educator myself, would never receive. So I realized the teacher may have some social emotional things that she needs to address.
Of course.
Because you don't handle parents or students the way that she responded to the parent.
Right.
And so I don't know if me approaching this teacher would be the wisest thing, or she would actually make it worse for the student because I've approached it. So that's something I would.
I mean, I probably would wait till like the day that the student walks out and is on his way to you. Number one, now that you've told me that information. And then the other thing is I would do my due diligence and not engage with her, but your due diligence and your information and connection can be via email with some very simple 3 to 5 questions of what you know about the student or whatever you want to know from her. And that's it. I don't even think there's any reason to get into talking with her and engaging, and certainly not doing it while the student's around.
So the way it's gonna, he's actually not going to be leaving this teacher. He's going to remain with this teacher for the rest of the year. The parent has come to me for additional support.
I see. Okay. I
So he still has to deal with the
school and learning
teacher.
class. That's a little trickier.
Right.
Do you think that the teacher would be less inclined to share openly if there was a 3-way communication among you, the parent, and the teacher?
I think I would then become a problem. I've taught with this teacher, and I think it becomes an issue, intimidation. I don't know what you call it,
Right.
but I don't think it would. They're going to be offended by anything that I say.
Okay. In this hierarchy of the teacher, is there a supervisor, a social worker, a principal, or someone that works directly with the teacher and is in touch with what goes on in the classroom, her classroom?
In this particular case, the hierarchy is not going to work.
Right, because that'll just enrage her more and she'll feel more paranoid and put up against the wall, and that won't work. So
Which
we don't want it to affect the-
also, depending on if the head is strong enough to deal with something, they can run interference, but in this case, it's not gonna work.
Let me ask you, will the student be in the school next year or be transitioning to your school, or you're just doing the extra support after school?
So that's the thing. The parent has said they will not allow the child to do a second year with the teacher. So
Okay,
we'll
that's good
continue
news.
this year, but regardless, they're not gonna put the child through it again for a second
Yeah.
year.
The other thing you can do is, you know, in your work with them and getting to know that student, you can have your direct communication, as I know you would every time you see that student, and write down those observations that you see and hand them to the parents and encourage them to advocate for him at school for whatever else he needs. And if it's spending less time, or if there's a student teacher or someone else that can be part of his school experience this year, that would be really a way that an outside provider or service professional like yourself providing support can really be helpful, but go behind the scenes and let the parents self-advocate by you feeding them the information they need based on your observations. That's another way I would approach that. Because you don't want any repercussions. I don't know what they'd be in the school since he's still there. Yeah.
Well, Lisa, our time is up, but we really want to thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're very welcome.
No, it's nice to have a little discussion and to be able to open up about some questions. And I know if we had more time, there would be more questions. But But really, once you're able to get back on the island, we're excited so you can meet some of our teachers that we collaborate with.
I
And
want to come as soon as possible. So we're hoping maybe to be there in March. So yeah, it's just 2 months away. I can't wait. My home away from home. And I'm very happy to provide this if you'd like to do a monthly and really get down to some more details. And I would certainly survey that ahead of time so that we can get down to the specifics. And I'm happy to help.
I was just going to
I
say
am
the
for
same
one.
thing.
Oh, go ahead.
You go,
No,
Chris.
I was gonna say, I'm so looking forward to those resources so I can fine tune the things that I do, because what the first thing I want the students to do is feel comfortable around me. And so even sometimes we have, we do a little goofy stuff. I have a few of the students that are from grade 4 and grade 5 that really take some, they're wound up by the time they come to me, and then they have to release that energy, and then they can just get down to working. And so my 4th grader today, he's just this jolly boy, and he has to do the little noises and the little humming, and he sings so beautifully. I told him, I love your voice. And sometimes while we're working, he'll sing a song and I'll say, oh, I know that song. And then we'll sing a little bit together. Okay, that's enough. Let's get back to work, So I'm very much looking forward to those resources that you have to kind of fine tune those things that I do, because it's kind of just coming out of the universe, just connecting with some of the students. But, there are others who takes a little more work. So looking forward to that. And thank you so much.
My
Lisa.
pleasure. I think I have a
Thank you.
picture with you, Crystal. Miss Crystal with Gabby. Did we take a picture together?
That was with Miss Farquharson, I believe.
No, I thought I had Crystal on my pictures. I have to look that up. Okay, well, you look familiar. It's very nice and my pleasure.
It would be great to have part 2 of this and to get back together, because I feel like we just got the ball rolling,
Yeah, no, let's do that in an open dialogue, and I'll, I can send some surveys for what would be valuable for families and for teachers, and then also a survey for this discussion, and how we, more information so we can make it really productive. So
thank
happy to
you.
help. Yep.
thank you so
What's
much.
the weather there? Tell me the weather in the Bahamas so I can be upset.
Go ahead. Someone tell her.
Finally above
I
20.
feel like it's 283
Oh,
degrees
I
right
want
now.
that.
I don't know. I'm just ready to rip off my shirt as it is right now, but I know it's probably
I'll
something.
trade with you.
It's going to get cold next week again. Don't worry. It will get down to like 72 or something.
Oh, stop
yeah.
it. All of you, stop it on that note. Really nice to meet everyone. And always, you can always send in questions and I'll get all these resources to you, and let's have another session. Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Keep
you so
keep
much.
Positive.
Thank you.
I see. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.